And I believe New York Fashion Week just ended a few weeks ago. Paris Fashion Week just ended. And there's been debates online over whether creators are hurting the event and the industry as a whole. And we were curious where you stand on this.
Personally, I feel like this is the reality. That's where we live today. That's how people consume content, consume products. That's how people shop. And like, I think anybody that kind of tries to like say that it's a bad thing is just kind of like being maybe a little nostalgic about how things used to be in the past, and like today is not as cool or whatever it is. But that's just the reality. I mean, creators have a lot of influence, and having a big creator show up to your show is going to bring a lot of attention to it. So I can understand, I think it's a good thing.
So we just wanted to start off with kind of asking what a day in the life looks like for you right now. I know you are expecting a baby, lots of stuff going on with Teddy Fresh. So just kind of starting off there.
My days totally change depending on what's happening each week. But for example, like today is a day where I'm in office. So I just kind of like get here. I try to have some time at home, so then I usually get here around 10, and then it's just meetings back to back to back. I try to fit in as many meetings as I can, and then so today's one of those days, and then I go home, and then when I go home it's all kids and it's dinner and bedtime and all that stuff, and when they go to sleep, that's my time to watch my shows. But then some days I'll do a photo shoot, so it's like a mix of meetings and then a shoot, or it totally depends on what is happening each week, but it's busy.
Totally, I can totally understand that. And talking about Teddy Fresh, we kind of wanted to start off with asking, out of curiosity, what do you consider the demographic of Teddy Fresh to be? Is it a lot of Gen Z, millennial, people really into internet stuff? What do you consider the demographic?
Yeah, I do think it's a mix of Gen Z and millennials. I think it's a lot. I mean, like I know from our analytics that it's 18 to 35 is the biggest category. And just from people I see on the street and people that come and say hi to me and stuff like that, I see a lot of people in their 20s that are just kind of like starting out their life, basically their adult life, and they can finally have a job and afford to splurge a little. And so Teddy Fresh is like a perfect outlet for them to pay maybe a little bit more than like the cheapest stuff that you can find out there, but it's not super expensive to the point that they can't afford it. And so it's kind of like a good in between, I feel like, for most people. And I meet a lot of creative people that are into the brand. Generally nice people.
We're curious. So, you talked a little bit about a day in the life. What does the creative process look like for designing a new line?
So I have Shirley, my creative director, her and I, we work super close. We'll decide for each month. Sometimes we'll pick like a theme. Sometimes it will be, I don't know, uniform is the theme, or it can be like just one word. Sometimes it's like farm, or I don't know. So we'll go with a theme for each month, and then we start to kind of like send each other inspiration and put together a little mood board, and then we go over it with our designers. And then from giving them inspiration, they go on and they draw some ideas. We also give them a line plan, and so they have to design into certain categories, like we want one jacket, we want 2 shirts. It breaks down, and so they have the mood, they have the inspiration, and the line plan. And then we meet for, it's called sketch review 2, and we kind of go over all the sketches and give comments and like narrow down per category. Okay, we're liking this, let's change it, let's go in this direction. Then we usually do sketch review 2, and then we finalize everything into handoff, which is when we hand it off to production and development. And at that point, design is out of the picture, and the development and production take it over, and they start sending it to the factories, and then the process goes on.
So overall, you would say like the creative processes that maybe take like about a month, and then what's the timeline for the rest of that process?
Yeah, from beginning to end, we're at a year calendar. So from launch of the design process until launch of product on the website is a year. The design that I just described process is, it's about a month. And then we have development, I think about 3 months. And then there's like production, shipping to here. And then we have a little bit of like a month, I think, for marketing to do their part. And so once the product gets here, they need to, take photos for the website and also do photo shoots on models and just get all the assets ready and everything e-com side ready.
Doing our research for this interview, we saw that you had done a previous interview where you said you'd like to be more established in the fashion world and attend shows and things like that. And I believe New York Fashion Week just ended a few weeks ago, Paris Fashion Week just ended, and there's been debates online over whether creators are hurting the event and the industry as a whole. And we were curious where you stand on this.
They hurt the event. Yeah, I really wanted to go to New York Fashion Week, and I was already packed up, and I went to the airport. And when I got there, they told me the flight was just canceled because there was a storm, apparently. I don't know. People in New York were saying it only drizzled a little, but the flights were all canceled. So that was supposed to be my first fashion week, and that got canceled. So we'll see, maybe next year. But personally, I feel like this is the reality. That's where we live today. That's how people consume content, consume products. That's how people shop. And like, I think anybody that kind of tries to like say that it's a bad thing is just kind of like being maybe a little nostalgic about how things used to be in the past, and like today is not as cool or whatever it is. But that's just the reality. I mean, creators have a lot of influence, and having a big creator show up to your show is going to bring a lot of attention to it. So I can understand, I think it's a good thing.
Kind of in a similar vein to that, we're curious also about how you kind of take in lots of new and trending, more kind of like Gen Z-ish trends and things like that, incorporate them into your work and your designs and things like that.
Yeah.
Coming in from like, a millennial perspective, looking in at Gen Z, how do you go about that?
I kind of tried to find my happy middle ground. Like, I always want to design something that I feel like I would want to wear, or my husband Ethan would want to wear, or people in my personal life. Like, I try to envision like real people in the real world wearing what we design, because I feel like when you're just designing on paper or on the screen, it's easy to like add a bunch of things, make it super colorful. At least that's where my head goes. So sometimes I have to tone it down a little bit, just when I think about, okay, but would I want to wear this tomorrow? Maybe not. Maybe I need to like make it a little more wearable. The same happens with trends. Like, maybe all of a sudden like super cargo baggy pants are super in, but like I'm gonna make it, I'll take the elements that I like within there, but I'll make it my own and not completely surrender to a trend because it's trendy right now. Because also trends come and go, and we, like I said in the beginning, we work a year in advance, and so when we design something, I have to be confident that I'm gonna like it in a year from now and not gonna be tired of it. But yeah, most of all, I just follow my intuition and just make sure I'm always authentic to like what I like, what my team likes, and not so much just do something because it's trendy at the moment.
Even keeping that in mind, are there any trends going on right now or in the past few months that you've been really into or that you've really disliked?
I have a love-hate thing right now with the bows. So bows have been like, I've been obsessed with it. And we have stuff coming out with a lot of bows, and we will in the next coming months. But I feel like after last New York Fashion Week, I've just seen it's been a bow overload. Like I've seen it everywhere in every way, shape, and form. And like that's one where I just noticed that I'm just a little like I need a minute from the bows. And so I think that's like one that immediately comes to mind. There was a moment with Barbie core, like I was so into the pink. But then when the movie came out and everybody's wearing pink, it becomes a little bit like, okay, we need to chill a minute, take a break. But yeah, I think that some of these trends, like there's an element to them that will always be cool, you know, like a bow is just always cute no matter what you're gonna do about it. But just it's a matter of like the amount, I think, how much you don't want to overdo something.
Totally. Kind of switching gears a little bit. I know it's something that you've discussed a lot on like the podcast and things like that, talking about pregnancy and your work life and everything like that. I'm curious of how pregnancy right now like impacts your work and day to day, and if it changes anything for you.
Yeah, it definitely does. Even from a design point of view, because I'm always kind of like designing what I want to wear, ultimately I end up also seeing what I'm designing kind of changing when I'm pregnant or not. Like the dress that I'm wearing now, I was just saying to people at the office, it's like a perfect maternity dress.
Love it.
Yeah, and it's just super easy to wear, and you have room to grow. You can, it can accommodate so many different body types. And so I feel like in that regard, it immediately like affects what I'm doing. And then there's also the more like real thing of just like being more tired. And so I can physically do less sometimes that I want to, or that I'm thinking in my head that I can do, but in reality, I get more tired than normally, or, so I have to kind of keep that in mind and not overwork myself or not expect too much of myself, and like let my body kind of rest when it needs to. And it's hard when you want to work and get a lot done.
Totally. I can completely imagine.
Yeah.
I'm kind of also curious about, I know you work so much with family, like obviously you're on the podcast with Ethan a lot of the time and things like that. I'm curious about how you or both of you kind of take into consideration how you work with each other, like how you kind of split up duties between like the podcast and Teddy Fresh, and how you dip into each other's work a little bit, and how you keep things separate, if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah, there was a time when we first started out and we were both working on our YouTube channel, that sometimes I got a little like not ideal, where there were times where I felt like Ethan was doing everything, for example, because the early days I was editing, but then I taught him how to edit, then he became the one editing, and so it was him in the videos, him editing, and then at some point I felt like, well, what should I do? I don't know what to do. And so it's kind of like finding the balance. I'm a person that wants to do and want to be active and feel like I'm contributing. And so the early days of our YouTube career was kind of like, sometimes we felt like it was not balanced, or we didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure how to help. I was always helping with creativity generally, like just the ideas, sketches, I don't know, doing the thumbnails, whatever I could, I would do to contribute. But I really feel like once we both started the podcast and Teddy Fresh, and then we both had like our own outlet to focus on, then we really struck our like healthy balance, because we could each have our own thing, but also there was an overlap. Like even with Teddy Fresh, sometimes I'll still ask him for his opinion on things, or when there's a question about numbers or quantities, or I don't know, and I like his opinion, I'll ask him. And same with the podcast, I sometimes chime in on like conversations I think we should do, or topics I think would be interesting, or how to make a topic more fun or something, I don't know. But we kind of like have this option of bleeding into each other, but ultimately like our day-to-day is very different, and we both have something to focus on that is our own. And I think that that's really worked well for us. I think it's been healthy.
We got one final question for you. I know we're close to running on time here.
Fast.
So both Teddy Fresh and the podcast have been going on for something like 6 years now.
Oh.
How do you keep from your work from feeling monotonous? And what's next for Teddy Fresh?
One thing for me with Teddy Fresh, I always wanted to not pigeonhole ourselves into any type of something that's too specific, because I know myself and my taste changes all the time, and my personal aesthetic and what I like I could be so into pink one day and then I want to wear all black, and then like I just kind of like want to dabble into different aesthetics. And so from the beginning I had that in mind about Teddy Fresh, and I wanted it to be something that could kind of like change with the trends or with my mood, whatever I was feeling like. That if we were all of a sudden to do like a punk collection, it wouldn't be so out of nowhere that people would be like, what are they doing? It's if we did it now, people would be like, oh hell yeah, that's fun, let's go. And so that's how I keep myself from getting to like a boring or stagnant place. I feel like if I get tired with something, I can shift my focus and try something else that seems more exciting at the moment. And I kind of like designed it from the beginning to be something that could work that way, because I've always known that about myself, like with art too. There's artists out there that could do the same thing and have a whole career doing the same kind of art, and it works for them and there's nothing wrong with it. But like for me, that just doesn't work.
Yeah. I saw on your Instagram you had posted a photo with it was a really cute outfit. I think it was a dress, and it had like a hot mom patch, and a bunch of people are asking, are we gonna get like a hot mom line? Are we gonna get some children's clothing from Teddy Fresh?
I think so. Yeah, we've done a little bit of children's clothing here and there. Like we did a jacket, we did a beanie. But yeah, I think that we will. It's just that, to be honest, I don't feel like it's a big vertical for us. Like I think our audience is maybe not yet, like majority of them maybe don't yet have kids. Maybe they're about to. So maybe in a few years they'll have kids. And so that might change.